Hey guys, it's Lewis from Recycle Bicycle Sales here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about who should go tubeless on their road bike. So what is tubeless? Well, it's exactly as the name would state, we are tubeless. We are without tube. There is no tube inside there because we've replaced the tube with some sealant instead. So we still have the tire, we still have the rim, but we have sealant instead of the tube that's sloshing around inside there. If we were to get a puncture and something was to pierce a hole in the tire and come back out, hopefully the sealant that's in there will clog up the hole from the inside so we can just keep riding. We don't have to pull over and repair it. The tubeless system actually originated with cars, with motor vehicles. They are a tubeless system as well. There is no inner tube inside the tires there. Maybe in super duper old school vintage cars, but not in cars in the way that we think of them. They are tubeless as well. In the mountain bike scene, when they first started with tubeless, pretty much everybody went tubeless. They just decided that it was absolutely the best thing for mountain bikers. I reckon the stats would be as close to 9 out of 10 mountain bikers run tubeless. Whereas in the road bike scene, the market is a little bit more divided. And that's why we wanted to make this video, because some people are unsure about whether they should be going for a tubeless setup or not. There's three main benefits that I can think of with tubeless. The first one is that you have a far better puncture protection. You're far less likely to actually get a puncture because there is no inner tube in there to be punctured. If there was some thorn or something that was to go in the tire and come back out, the sealant should, in theory, clog up the hole from the inside rather than just letting the air seep out as it would with a normal tube. So you're far less likely to get a puncture. As well as that, since there's no tube, you can't get what we call a pinch flat. A pinch flat happens when the tire and the rim pinch together on the edge of something hard like a pothole or a rock or something like that, and they pinch together and actually pinch the inner tube that's inside there. Since you are tubeless, there is no tube to be pinched, so you can't even get a pinch flat. So instantly, your likelihood of getting a puncture is halved straight away, and then it's minimized even more with the fact that you now have sealant sloshing around inside there. So puncture protection is the first thing. And the second one is that you've got a bit more grip. Now that you're able to run a lower tire pressure because there's no inner tube that can be pinched, it means that you can have more surface area touching the ground or touching the road. So as you're leaning into the corner, there's a bit more tire touching the ground. It's going to help you go around that corner a little bit faster. And coupled with that is the third one, which is comfort. In the same sense that you have a lower tire pressure, you have more surface area touching the road, it's going to be a little bit softer and sort of squishier, which is going to take some of the vibrations off your wrists and your joints and even your lower back as well. So it's also a bit more comfortable. With that being said, there are some things that I consider disadvantages when we consider road bikes that are tubeless. For example, the initial setup is a little bit more involved than just putting a normal tube in there. When you go tubeless, there's 4 parts to it. You need the tires, the valves, the rim tape, and the sealant. If we're talking about normal tubes, kind of doesn't really matter. You can kind of just run a tube inside any tire, but you have to, if you're going tubeless, you have to have tubeless ready tires, tubeless valves, you have to have rim tape that's able to hold the tubeless so the liquid's not going to seep through. And you also need to remember to put the sealant in there, which is going to be sloshing around inside, which brings us to my next point as well, which is that you need to stay on top of it a little bit. Sealant is the sort of thing that doesn't tend to last much longer than about 6 months on average. You might squeeze a couple of extra months out of it, but typically speaking about 6 months. So you might actually need to top up the sealant inside the tire every 3 to 6 months. It's not an uncommon thing, it's not an issue, but it does mean that there's one more extra maintenance task that you have with your bike. And also, it is a little bit heavier. Now that we've got all this liquid sloshing around inside there is a little bit more weight that's going inside the tire, as well as the fact that now that we have the tubeless ready tires, they tend to be a little bit thicker. Thicker because they have more rubber, and having more rubber means that they are a little bit heavier. Not necessarily the end of the world, but it is what I would consider a disadvantage with tubeless. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to quickly mention that YouTube sent us a message recently saying that 94% of people watching these videos haven't subscribed yet. So I just wanted to quickly say that we have tens of thousands of dollars worth of value in these videos, and we're giving it all to you for free. So if it is something that you appreciate and you want to help our small business succeed, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button down below. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Setting up to tubeless takes 4 main parts, and depending on how many of these parts you already have, this could be quite a costly exercise. This could cost you $300 to upgrade to a tubeless setup. You need to have the tires, this is where most of the money is, having tubeless ready tyres, which are a little bit different to just normal tubes. They tend to be a little bit more expensive per tyre on average as well. Not the end of the world, but something worth considering if you have to buy new tyres. You need to have the tubeless ready valves. These are about $30 for a pair because you're going to need 2 of them for 2 different wheels. You need to have the tubeless ready rim tape, which is maybe $30, whereas normal rim tape is probably more like just 10 bucks. And you almost never need to replace your rim tape on a normal tube, only on tubeless. And then you also need to have the sealant as well. And sealant is about $15 per wheel, whereas an inner tube is about $10 per wheel. Not a big difference, but it is a bit of a difference if you have to keep topping it up 3 or 4 times per year. But the biggest potential variable here is the cost of new wheels. Some wheels are not tubeless compatible or not tubeless ready, as some different brands will call it. So you have to make sure that your wheels are also tubeless ready. If I'm being honest, a very quick Google search should help you answer this question. Now I want to quickly talk about the labor side of things. You can always take your bike to the bike shop and they can help out. It's a task that they'll probably charge a good bit of money to do. It might end up being maybe $40 per wheel minimum to be able to set it up tubeless and seat the tire and get the sealant in there and put the rim tape on and this and that and that. So it might be a difficult task for a bike shop to do, but if you wanted to try and do it yourself, which you definitely can, we did a video further back on our YouTube channel. I'm gonna say it was over a year ago, so we were still learning how to do all this video stuff, so be polite in the comment section, please. I was still learning. But you will see in that video that we didn't even get it first try. So sometimes tubeless can be a very fiddly task, very rewarding when everything goes wrong and the tubeless is fine. But setting it up, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of front load work to get it set up. Setting up tubeless can also be a very messy task. Now that we have this sealant and this liquid that we're trying to fit inside the tire, sometimes you might miss a bit or it might dribble all over the place. So it's probably not something you were thinking about when you first thought about upgrading to tubeless, but it's a fair thing that you probably should know if you're trying to do it at home, as you'll see in that video further back there as well, that it can be a little bit messy. So if you were to spill some sealant on the carpet because you were doing it in your bedroom, you're going to be looking at that sealant stain for the rest of your life. There's also a couple of extra running costs that go along when you upgrade to tubeless. Things like you might need to top up the sealant every now and then. I'm going to say every 3 to 6 months, and tubeless sealant is about $10 per refill, so you might need a budget for that, roughly a couple of times a year or 2 or 3 times a year. If you were to get a puncture out in the roads, sometimes you can bring it back to life if you have a slug in here. I don't have any slugs in store, so I can't show you what one looks like, but it literally looks like a slug, like the animal, and you're going to stab that into the hole of the tire, which will clog up the hole, and then twist it as you pull it out, and then sort of cut off the excess. Just in case the hole is massive and the tubeless sealant isn't able to seal the hole that large, but the slug will. So that might help limp you home, but then you've got a budget for a new tire again, or you could put a tube back into it. And on that same train of thought, if you were to get a slice in the tire, like a big piece of glass or a massive metal spike or something like that, you will need to get an entire new tire on there. You can't repair a tubeless tire that bad. So this is kind of where the cost to repair a normal tube is significantly cheaper than repairing a puncture on a tubeless. However, the likelihood of getting a puncture on the tubeless is a lot lower. So pros and cons both ways here. Something you'll find if you do upgrade to tubeless is that the tire pressure will slowly leak a little bit. As in, if you leave the bike overnight sitting in the shed at 80 PSI and you get there in the morning, it might only be at 60 PSI. So you might need to make sure that the tires are pumped up just before you go for a bike ride, not necessarily the morning or the night before. This is especially true in 2 different scenarios. One of them is if you had a puncture and some of the sealant leaked out and it's repaired itself, if that hole is left at the top of the wheel overnight, all of the sealant is going to follow gravity and come back down to the bottom, and it might not stay clogging up that hole. So you might lose a little bit of pressure out of that hole. Which kind of a best way to avoid that is if you've got a hole in the tire, bring it down to the bottom so that gravity can do its job and bring all the sealant down and clog it up overnight. That would be a good thing. But the second time that you might lose some pressure is if it's a brand new tire or the tire's been taken off of the wheel for whatever reason, it hasn't just been sitting for a while. What I say whenever we set up tubeless here, if someone comes in and picks up a bike, a rule that I make them promise to me is that they're going to go for a bike ride, even just 5 minutes, a lap of the block or something like that, with their body weight on their bike, pedaling around, squishing the tire, moving it around so that the sealant can soak through into the tire, into the different places it needs to go. If they put it in the back of the car, took it home, hung it up on the wall, again, gravity is going to bring the sealant all the way down to the bottom of that wheel, and it's not going to coat the inside of the tire, which isn't exactly ideal. So I would expect it to lose pressure. I also warn people when they have a brand new tire put on their bike, heads up, when you wake up in the morning, it might be flat. Don't be discouraged if it's flat. I almost expect it to go flat, and it's purely because of the fact that you haven't taken it for a ride yet and given the sealant a chance to swish all around the wheel. Going back to the benefits, I just want to talk about puncture protection. If you were to get a puncture on a tubeless system, there's no light way to put it except for the fact that you are just incredibly unlucky in that situation. Getting a puncture on tubeless really doesn't happen very often unless it's something catastrophic. And if it was a catastrophic failure, you'd probably have the same catastrophic failure even if you had a tube. So your chance of avoiding it was still better, but it's not quite enough in that situation. But you're like 10 times more likely to get a puncture on a normal tube, but it is easier for you to fix the normal tube on the side of the road than it is the tubeless. But 10 flat tires versus 1 flat tire, tubeless does make sense. Here's something that you might actually find interesting. If you are running a tubeless setup, some people think that means that they can't run a tube. Incorrect. You can run a tube, it's just messy to put it in there. So what I'm saying here is even if you are tubeless, I still highly recommend carrying an inner tube in your saddlebag or your puncture repair kit, so that if you do get a catastrophic failure, like a big slice or something in the tire, and you're 50 k's from home and there's no other way of getting home, you could still put an inner tube in there. In that specific scenario, the tube is going to poke through the big cut, but something you could do is take some cash out of your pocket, put that inside the tire between the tire and the tube, and then that way the tube's not going to be able to poke through because of a piece of plastic or paper, I suppose, depending on wherever you are in the world, inside that tire there. So it might just help limp you home so that you can reset it up with a new tire when you get home. For what it's worth, I've said a few times in this video that you might need to top up the sealant. You can go to your local bike shop and buy a bottle just like this. We've got these for $15 and it has 60 milliliters in there. So you could buy a massive 1 liter one of these and you could have a bottle like this, put it into the tire and then fill it up again and then keep reusing this bottle because it's the perfect size. So I would highly recommend buying one of these from the local bike shop, or pop in here to Recycle Bicycle Sales and I can help out. And yeah, you'll need to top up the sealant every now and then. So the overarching question here is, should you be going tubeless? I'm gonna start this by saying, from what I've seen in my 10 plus years of working in bike shops, is I reckon 2 out of 10 road cyclists tend to go tubeless. So it's not heaps popular, but the people that do it absolutely rave over it and say that tubeless is the absolute best thing. So the question here is, who should be going tubeless? I'm gonna say the people that don't know how to change a tube yet are probably the people that should maybe consider tubeless, because hopefully you don't have to replace the tube. I was saying earlier in the video that you might get 10 flat tires on a tube, but you might only get 1 on a tubeless. So they're pretty good odds. You're far less likely to get a puncture with the tubeless. The only thing that I don't like about tubeless from a personal side of things is that it takes quite a bit of effort to set up. And I am a bike mechanic, so it is my job to set it up. If you took it to the local bike shop, they can set it up for you, and you obviously pay them some money for them to do it as well. So tubeless is absolutely worth it, if I'm really being honest. I don't go tubeless myself, but I can change a tube in 40, 60 seconds. So I'm quite competent and quite confident with changing tubes. So I don't really have any issues with it. But if it takes you 30 minutes to change a tube, or maybe you've never changed a tube before, tubeless is definitely a worthwhile upgrade. Also, if you already have tubeless ready rims, it might be worth trying it out. But if you don't have tubeless ready rims yet, it could be a $300 test. So maybe not necessarily worth it in my mind. So hopefully this video helps you understand about whether you're the sort of person that should be considering a tubeless upgrade. Now I'm gonna pin 2 comments down below. One is gonna say tubes and one is gonna say tubeless. If you click like on whichever one you are down there, other people who watch this video can also look down there to get a bit of an idea as to the ratio of tubes to tubeless people. I was saying that from my experience, I think it's 2 out of 10. I could be proven wrong, but you'll see that in the comment section down below. So make sure you have a look down there. If you've ever had an issue with tubeless, or maybe you tried tubeless and didn't like it or did like it, or anything tubeless related, also let us know in the comment section down below. Otherwise, I'm going to say thanks for watching this video and we'll see you next time. See you guys.